Welcome, 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 welcome. Nice to be with you all. So big news, everyone. I would like to formally invite you to this year's winter retreat. And this retreat will be December 26th through the 28th, 2022. And so if you've ever noticed, when we get near Christmas, when we're near the time of the winter solstice, when the days are short and cold and dark, this is an excellent time to be going inward, to be opening to your inner light. It's a time of supreme holy energies as they flood the earth, flood the planet, and flood your being. And so I'm going to invite you to join us for this 3-day online retreat. If you can make it, we would love to have you. And I know this retreat is right in the middle of the week here. But for many of us during this time, during the holiday season, we have time off work. And it's a time when we're not really outside running around much. It's a time of great introspection and reflection as you reflect upon this last year and journey inward. And as you go inward at this time, often you can find this very warm, heavenly, holy light within your own nature. And so this is what we're going to be exploring during this retreat. So I do hope you can join us. And retreat is always a powerful time when we are blessed with energies of grace, energies of light, energies of immense love and healing. Retreat is a wonderful opportunity to make a giant leap forward on the path. There's some friends of mine were in India. They used to travel to India to Tiruvannamalai, where Ramana lived, and Yogi Ram Sarat Kumar, and where many great saints and sages live. And even though, India in theory is a Hindu country, they said that there's this lovely force of grace that just shines out over the city during this time. And I thought, how wonderful. How wonderful. And that light, of course, isn't just reserved for these holy cities. This light is open and available to anyone who takes the time to stop, to put down all the holiday rush and excitement or drama with their family, but rather, to put all that down and to dive deep, and to begin to explore the nature of one's soul, to come into contact with the birthing of the Christ, of the divine within you. And so anyways, I do hope you can join, and there's, of course, details on the website, and it's open to everyone. And if if you can afford it, please come. And if you're really struggling with, needing financial support or something, just reach out to me and we'll make something work for you. Yeah, I'd rather you come than not come. Retreat truly is a gift of us being able to meet in the spirit, meet in love, and meet in the energies of spiritual awakening. And so, right now, I'm going to shift gears and I'm going to invite you to close down your eyes if you haven't already. And tonight, I'd like to speak about the enlightenment body, the Soma body. And so often in spirituality, our physical body is kind of ignored. Even in modern non-duality, the subtle energetic body is ignored. But I'm going to invite you just to join me in the most humble of all places, to join me in the pelvis, just feeling into the root chakra, feeling into your pelvis and your sacrum. And for most of us, this is a seat of great tension. One of the most fundamental aspects of ego, the fight or flight response arises out of. But if you can, I want to invite you to take some deep, full belly breaths. And there's this breath in particular that we've been working on in the last couple of weeks in the Wednesday evening meditations. I'm going to invite you to take a big inhale, just filling the lungs and filling the belly with air, and then doing an unusually intense exhale where you're really squeezing the abdomen muscles, the core muscles in toward the spine, really exhaling all the stale air. And so let's just try that for a moment here. So breathing in deep and full, and exhaling in a full way, almost forceful, not too forceful, but almost forceful. And as you breathe in this way, these deep, full breaths and these unusually intense exhales, you may notice just this very gentle letting go happening in the pelvis, in the hara, in the sacrum. I invite you just to feel this quiet point in the spine. The sacrum meets the beginning of the vertebrae, the lumbar spine. And just beginning to soften and melt. There's all these points of holding. These points of holding. The perineum, the hips, the sacrum, the hara. This point where the sacrum meets the lumbar spine. Just noticing that the soma begins to wake up. Your energetic body begins to wake up. As we breathe deeply and fully, melting in the solar plexus and a little bit further up the spine. There's this aspect of enlightenment that is fully experienced in the body, where you begin to acknowledge or feel, experience directly that the body is awareness, that awareness is the body. And this great paradox, as you relax the body and stop relating to it in a human animal way or psychological way or numb or dead type of way, or Some of us, we use our body just to repress all of our pain into. But as we don't relate to the body in this way, but relate to the body as the direct experience of awareness itself, we begin to experience this most innocent aspect of enlightenment. So not some grand philosophical enlightenment, but this radically innocent aspect of enlightenment that is already awake, already here, already alive, spacious, and peaceful. If you simply feel into the spine, relax the spine, and become the spine. And again, here's where the paradox becomes multidimensional, because as soon as you relax and become the spine energetically, you see that this experience of enlightenment, it doesn't end at the spine, it doesn't end at the edges of the body. But actually, that almost like explodes or blasts open on this horizontal plane. You begin to experience yourself first in an egocentric way as the body, trapped in the body. Once you open and awaken to what the body actually is, you see the body has no bounds, no boundaries. It has no walls. And that your body is the night sky. Your body is the universe. As we begin to let go behind the heart and the spine behind the heart, you may even begin to experience yourself as the holiness of the Christ. Of the Christ. And in order to get in touch with any of this, if this is mysterious in any way, the only thing you need to do is to breathe and to feel, to open and experience in the here and now. And just feeling into the spine. What is the spine? What is the body? What is this presence that I am? And of course, if you're up in your head, if you're ruminating, you'll be confused. You won't have a sense of what it is that I'm speaking about. But if you allow yourself simply to feel in the most innocent way, and for some of you, you may say, well, there's pain here. And that's okay. Just let the pain move. Let the pain melt. Let yourself see what is underneath the pain. What is underneath the pain? And so softening and opening, and I can see right away that many of you were making this fundamental error, and it's okay. It's an innocent human error where we try to ignore our humanity, ignore our pain, and open to this thing that the teacher is speaking about. But the thing about the body, the energy of the body, is an energy of radical inclusivity. Fully allows all to be here. So there can be pain and space. There can be kundalini kriyas and bliss. It can be the releasing of trauma into the vast space of emptiness. And so very beautiful, everyone. I just want to really welcome you into this moment and welcome you into satsang. And so often we relate to satsang as some kind of philosophical teaching. But satsang is really about directly experiencing your true nature. And in order to do that, tonight, this week, this month, this lifetime, I'm inviting you all to look again at your body and to see, what is this thing? What is this temple? Because so many of us, we relate to our body as an old bag of bones, or this thing that gets sick, or that ages, that breaks down, that aches. And there is some truth to that in a real human way, if we just look at our life purely physically. But if you open directly and begin to inquire into, what is this temple? What is this Soma? You begin to immediately realize that this body is made of energy. It is energy. And the more you ignore it, the more dense you will experience it, or the more numb or dead it will feel, and more it'll feel just like an old bag of bones. But if we open to the energetic aliveness of the body, the radiance of the body, the holiness of this form, you begin to experience a supremely Christ-like energy. And this is something that often only takes a couple deep, full breaths, along with a reorientation of how we view ourselves. And so I invite you to join me in the worship of the Soma, the worship of the temple, the worship of the beauty and the innocence, the space and the peace. That is right here. That is right here. And so a practice I'll offer for this week is I'm going to invite you just to pay attention to your spine, to the central column, with this most basic question. Am I relaxed? Am I holding tension? Does this spine, does this temple that I find myself in, does it feel aligned with grace, with light, with space, with peace, with emptiness, with immense love and radiance. Or is it simply aligned with trauma and pain, and or maybe just out of alignment? And can you pay a little bit more attention to this thing? See if you can bring it into alignment. Bring it into alignment. And so if you like, you can open your eyes. And of course, if you want to keep them closed, that's fine too. In many traditions, Zen tradition and Buddhist traditions, and yogic traditions, often there's these teachings on having a straight back, an aligned spine, a spine that is stacked right on the pelvis. On the kind of, if you just, if everyone just plays around with their neck right now, if you just pull your chin in just a little bit, most of us, we have our head kind of sticking out like this, and especially if we're stare at phones and computers all day. If you take your head and if you just pull your chin in just a little bit, you may notice, and if you're, the spine being straight, and just imagine just this little hook kind of pulling the top of your head just directly up. You may notice if you just do this little thing, just this little adjustment in your posture, that there is an energy that begins to flow more fluidly right through the center. That something just begins to wake up and shine and flow through you, just through just taking your head just from your neck normally stuck out, just to pulling it in a little bit. There's even this little connection. If you take the tip of your tongue and just rest it at the roof of the mouth, you may notice the chi flowing, prana flowing, the kundalini flowing more fluidly. This is a simple movement of alignment. Now, often I don't teach too much about alignment because those who practice it or teach it often teach it in a way that's, it's like being like a Zen Nazi, where you're always judging yourself or judging others for their spine and their posture. And you think the whole spiritual path is just about your posture. And there's this funny thing about spirituality is it's often true that the whole path can be reduced down to one little movement or one little point of focus. And so we can say the whole path is peace. We just focus just directly on peace and wake up through the avenue of peace. We can say the whole path is love. All is love. God is love. The path is love, and just focus on love. And then there's the same teaching with alignment, with if you focus on the body, and if you love the body, if you honor it for what it actually is. There's, one of the teachings from Marpa, the student of Naropa, in ancient times, taught this. If you just have a straight spine, that's all it takes to be enlightened. And of course, that's not the truth. And in one sense, it can be the truth. If you focus fully on having your spine straight and deeply relaxed, when the spine is deeply relaxed, it's really hard to have a problem. When you live in a way where there's no tension within the nervous system. Now, for most of us who have busy lives and children and careers and partners and all this responsibilities and all this type of thing. And external pressures. It's really hard to just think the path can be that simple. But I invite you just to play with it and just to see what happens if you really honor your body. Like, what is your experience directly if you fully honor your body? If you fully honor it. And by that, I mean that we pay attention to it. But please, there's all the, all the control freaks in the room, they tend to hear this teaching in a way where they just assert a hyper sense of control on their body and on their nervous system. It's like, my Lord, that is not the way. I tried that when I was young. So I tried to just have a hyper sense of control, and it ended in utter failure. It created just a tremendous amount of stress within my nervous system. And I want you just to imagine here, if I have, like my rosary here, like this isn't a hyper sense of control. Like, I'm not holding it at both ends. And, if I stretch it real tight at both ends, I'm going to snap this, I'm going to break it. But if I just gently hold it, you see it falls into alignment, and there's this natural peace to it. This natural sense of relaxation to it. And I want you to imagine the same thing with your spine. That we can relax in a way where trauma just naturally begins to release from our being. Release from our being. Often when I do this breath, and I'm teaching here in the beginning here, this deep full inhale with an unusually intense exhale, often I find when I do this, there's just little bits of tears and trauma that begin to release from my nervous system without me, doing any trauma processing work or anything like that. Just breathing. And there's just these little bits of pain that just begin to just unravel and release. Please don't think that I'm not saying don't do trauma work. But sometimes when we are very quiet with our body, when we truly honor our temple, when we're at tune with our own self, if there's sadness within us, often the sadness just starts emptying out of us. If we're too serious and we come into a place of just deep peace and relaxation, oftentimes we just let out these big bursts of laughter. So it's like, oh my God, I've just been so serious for so long, and I need to let go of this samsaric worldview and just be. Just in this lightness of being, this lightness of joy. This lightness of joy. Now, if you sit, in alignment, you often see, oh yeah, I'm holding a sense of jealousy, or, oh my God, there's rage here. Rage, and it's connected to my father, mother, sister, brother, partner. It's connected to the aliens who abducted me. And did the experiments on me. Just seeing if any of you are awake. I'm sorry. It's often that when we just sit in a deep and peaceful way, what happens is our body, it just becomes like this mirror, and we start to see, oh, I have unrealistic expectations of myself, or my partner, of my neighbor. of my neighbor. I got in a little tiff with someone the other day, trying to buy a house, and I offered them a great deal. Like, these houses where I'm at right now is just like so overpriced, and so I met them in this place, and just I thought it was being incredibly generous. But I knew the person personally, and I was trying to just buy it from them without a realtor, because to me it didn't make any sense. Like, I know you, and what if we just did the deal between you and I, and we didn't have a middleman that we have to pay tens of thousands of dollars to really do nothing. No offense to any realtors. And it's like they really wanted to use the realtor, and I was like, why? Like, it's going to cost you all this money, it's going to cost me all this money. We don't need to have any allegiance to this person. And they were just really stuck in their view, and I was like, oh, okay. It's just interesting sometimes that people get stuck in views. I get stuck in the view of trying to help too much, and I don't realize that sometimes people have a different value where money isn't an object to them. They want to honor something else. But when we come into our spine, when we come into alignment, it's very easy to see other people's worldviews, and there's space for where they're at, and their values, and their wants, their needs. But when we get off in our sense of self, when we become contracted, when we relate to life from a fight or flight perspective, of me against you perspective, when we relate to life through a pleasing perspective, or an aggressive perspective, or a pushy perspective, and we fall out of the truth quite quickly. And so I'm going to invite you just during the next month, just to really pay attention to your body, just with this very loving question. Am I relaxed? Am I at peace? Am I aligned? Aligned with the truth, with peace, with love. Am I relaxed? Am I at peace? Am I aligned? So I invite you to play with this. Okay, I see lots of hands up, and I have lots of emails. And so I'm going to do this just because it's late in the night for Chrissy. I'm going to call on Chrissy here. Speak with Chrissy first.
Hi, Craig.
Hey, Chrissy, good to see you.
You too. Thanks for the teaching. It was really timely for me.
Good.
Recently, you said something like, when we are empowered, we process less and we're triggered less. Could you talk a little bit more about this, please?
Yeah. So when we're empowered, when we are empowered within our own self, within our truth. Like, when you're in the truth, when you're in your power, you feel whole, you feel complete. It's like the opposite of being insecure. And so when you're in this great space of security, and again, it's security, but without defenses. You're radiating light outward. You're radiating power outward. There's really not much to process from that place. because you are power, you are light, you are radiance. Like in order to process, often we have to be in some level of identification of deficiency. And we have to feel like, gosh, like I'm feeling out of sorts here and I'm holding on to this grudge or this pain, or I felt like this person hurt me and they did me wrong. And so I got to find a little bit of power. And from a little bit of power, I'm going to process what's here, and I'm going to hold the child and love the child, and I'm going to let go and I'm going to forgive. But when you are empowered, this will sound crazy, but like when you're fully empowered, someone can spit in your face and you laugh. Like, like you don't need to process it. You don't need to be like, now hold on, this isn't fair, this isn't right. We need to stop. I need to make boundaries with you. I need to tell an authority figure and they're going to tell you you're wrong or you're bad, or I need to speak up and defend myself. Like when you're empowered, someone might spit on your face and you might laugh. You might tell them to fuck off, but you tell them to fuck off from a place of peace and from a place of light that is so whole and complete that there's like no, like you don't feel like so utterly offended. Like when you're empowered, you can see the reason the other people, the other humans spit in your face or, do things to harm you. You see that they are in suffering, but because you are in your power, you can respond with compassion. It's like nothing sticks to you really when you're in your power. When you're in your power. And so there's just this thing of like to be empowered means to be brilliant, like fiery with light. It's to be whole and complete, like so whole and complete that you are radiating outward, that your light is shining outward. And when you walk around in samsara, you see the other people aren't connected to their truth. And so you see if they make a mistake, it's very similar. Like when I just think of a silly example here. Like, so a couple of weeks ago, my daughter had her friends over at the house and they're just like looking for something to do. And they're like, we're going to wash your bike. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, and you're going to pay us $5, And I'm like, okay, like I'll pay you girls $5 to wash my bike. Okay. And, they washed it. They did a terrible job. They left soap all over it. Like they're 8 years old and there's 4 of them and they're really confused. And, it was kind of cold out. So it's just like, it wasn't the right thing for them to be doing at that moment, whatever, they were entertained. And it's like, I got out my wallet and I gave them, I gave 5 of them. I gave them all $1 and $5. And I'm like, here you go, girls. I didn't feel offended. I didn't feel like, hey, you didn't do a good job and you screwed up my, it's like, because I'm empowered. There's just this sense of like, even if life gives me a bad deal, it's no big deal. Because I am connected to the source. Not only am I connected to the source, I am the source. I am the source. But when we're processing, and again, and nothing wrong with processing, like, for many of us, there's all these aspects of our being that does not feel connected to the source, doesn't feel as if it is one with the source. And so processing is basically trying to get plugged back into the source, trying to get plugged back in. And a lot of times it's first we need to make boundaries and we got to get in a safe place. And then when we're in a safe place, then we can plug into God or plug into truth, plug into ourselves. But when you're empowered, like you are the power, you are the thing that one would normally plug into. You are it. You are it. And so again, there's like no real need to process. Now, I will say, just in a human and humble way, if there are parts of you that need to process, it's no big deal, and it's done from a place of happiness and from a place of ease. There's no fear in it, and so then the processing, it can happen very quickly. Very quickly. But one of the reasons many of us do not heal is because we're not connected to our power. We're not connected to our power. One of the reasons people stay stuck is because they unconsciously align with insecurity, with pain, with being the victim, with like this cold human fact that you hurt me and I'm unsafe, and this body is frail and it's unsafe, and I need boundaries, and I need this and that. And again, like developmentally, there's nothing wrong with that. That's a necessary step. But when you're kind of at the end of the line, when you're just plugged into power, like we don't need to walk around setting boundaries with everyone. People look at us and they're actually scared. They're scared because we take up space. By scared, I mean like they don't mess with us. They don't mess with us. Now, I can say this, just my nature has always been like I have a lot of like I behave myself mostly with you all, but my nature, I have a tremendous amount of coyote energy within me. Like that's energy, like just mess with people, screwing with people. But like one person I could never mess with, ever, was my teacher. Like there is nothing I could ever do to mess with him. It was like I couldn't even begin to joke around with him. I couldn't even begin to pull his leg. I couldn't, like, there's no way in hell that I could ever tell a lie to my teacher. It was just like he had this force of light around him that was so intense, so powerful. Like all the bullshit and the games and the stuff that I normally play with a lot of people, again, just for fun. There was zero room for that. And it wasn't because he said there's no room for it. It was just like I couldn't even form, that kind of, I couldn't form the silliness in me. Like there's just, it wasn't allowed in the space. And again, not from some external rule, but just his presence. There was just this sense of no nonsense. There's like zero screwing around. And then, and generally speaking in life, like when I was in college and when I was in any class, even though I would get, like straight A's as a student, I would screw with the teachers relentlessly, whoever they were. I screw with my friends relentlessly. I screw with my children relentlessly. That's like my oldest daughter. Guys are crazy. Crazy. But like when you're in the presence of someone with power, it's like that person they don't need boundaries because there's so much light shining out from them that people tend just not to screw with them, tend not to mess with them. And again, I'm just saying this just like as a general sense. Again, nothing wrong with processing, but the more empowered you become, I'll say it this way. Like part of, like a huge part of healing, of course, is loving of oneself, accepting of oneself, forgiving oneself. And we must do that. But like for healing to be complete, we have to have love plus power. If we have love as like the final stage of our healing, oftentimes what will manifest is this supreme sensitivity, and then we become like someone who has a graduate degree in trauma therapy, and they're walking around and they are traumatized in every moment, and they're sensitive in every moment because there's no connection to their power. And you see this, like this is one of the plagues that's kind of inhabits graduate schools for psychotherapy. As it's one of the reasons I don't use the T word, but just that everyone in the program is just eternally upset by whatever everyone says. But there's this thing that happens is when you love yourself fully, but you simultaneously connect with your strength, your power, your indestructible nature, you rarely get upset by what people do to you. What you see instead is you see, oh my God, like that person is hurting so much. That's why they are acting like such a jerk. That's why they're acting like such a jerk. But when you're connected to your insecurity, when someone acts like a jerk, it's like, oh my God, that hurts so bad. That hurts so bad. And so we want to, again, so if that's the case, if we are there, again, no judgment, if we're there, someone hurts us, we're like, that hurts so bad. You put boundaries, you get yourself in a safe space, you love yourself fully. But part of loving yourself fully is looking inside and seeing that your innocence was actually unharmed. Your ego could have been harmed, sure. Like your self-image could have been harmed, sure. But your innocence, you see that it is unharmed. And the reason you see that your innocence is unharmed is because you love yourself enough to actually look and see. When that person called me a jerk, a lunatic, or whatever, and you look inside and you look under the pain of whatever the offense was, and you see your own beauty is here still, you become empowered because you're like, oh my God, like they didn't actually harm me. And I'm going to say this will sound crazy, it'll sound a little harsh, but like I've worked with people who have been like ritualistically abused. Like this is like the crown jewel of abuse. It's ritualistic abuse. It's horrific. And I've sat with them before and I say, oh, look in your heart and tell me what you see. And they say, oh my God, I see all this pain, this tremendous pain and this heartache. I say, well, let's look a little deeper. And they start crying. But this time it's tears of joy. And I see that there's something here that is so utterly beautiful. And so you get your power, you get your true power from the realization of your beauty, your indestructible beauty, your indestructible innocence. And when you know this, when you experience this on a gut level, you're just like, oh my God, like this radiance that I am, this beauty that I am cannot be harmed. It was unharmed by everything mom did, dad did, sister, brother, the creepy coach, this person who touched me and did this to me. It's like none of it. My essence was unharmed. My God, I am so, excuse my language, fucking beautiful. My brilliance is so fucking bright. It's illuminated. It's like, oh my God. And when you wake up to how beautiful, how innocent, how your purity was not damaged, there's this immense power that radiates out of you. And that's the completing of like all the processing. Because you know that I am fully loved and I'm fully beautiful. And this love and this beauty are totally indestructible. And because you know that in the depth of your being, it creates this type of freedom. It's like things, they bounce off. It's like things just, they don't, like nothing can harm me. And in Zen, like they say these things like you have to die before you die and all this kind of silliness, and it sounds all poetic and everything. But like, this is why I'm such a fan of facing terror, facing fear, facing your trauma, and just looking at the thing. Like, did mom and dad, did it squash the light out of me? Like, did they squash it? And again, like a human self-image way, on an inner child way, often it feels that way. But if you really sit with that child within you and you wake up to her beauty, say, oh my God, she's so beautiful. I'm so beautiful. And you realize no one hurt me. They hurt my image. They hurt my idea of myself. And again, I don't want that to sound harsh, but they hurt my egoic nature. They hurt my humanity. But my essence is just as beautiful as the day I was born. And because of that, it has this wonderful healing effect. Wonderful healing effect. And so there has to be this transformation within oneself where, okay, it's like, I love myself, I love myself, I love myself, I love myself. Okay, I'm doing pretty good with the love thing. Now, how about my power? How about my power? Like, am I just going to continue identifying as the one who was beat up by life? Like, can I not see my own beauty right here, right now? Like, can I not see that? And again, like I want to be crystal clear here. Like, I found this beauty within my own self on the worst day of my life. So it wasn't like, oh, man, sitting on a meditation cushion, I found it there. Like, I found this on the worst day of my life, in the pit of hell. If something woke up and it saw, oh, there's beauty here. There's beauty in this one that has not been harmed by hell. And so again, like, this is not some forced willpower. This is not some machismo thing. This is a deeply feminine recognition of one's beauty, one's innocence. And this is something that any good father, any good mother will do, is they look at their child and they see that their child is eternally good, eternally divine, even if they brought their muddy shoes on the white carpet. Like, most parents don't do that, but a lot of parents do just have great faith in their kids. And for those of us who did not get it from mom or dad, either way, it becomes irrelevant. You have to discover this in your own self, whether mom and dad did it for you or not. For us to have confidence in this way, we have to discover this thing within our own self. We have to be willing to see what's underneath the pain. Now, most people, again, this kind of relates to power and courage. Most people don't have the courage to look under the pain. Most people look at their pain, say, oh my God, it's too much. I can't handle it. And then we go into blame or into falling apart and needing someone else to do the work for us, like our new boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, whatever. And so to get in touch with it, it takes some courage to say, like, I'm going to look I'm going to look at the pain. I'm going to feel the pain. But I'm also going to look underneath the pain. And I'm not going to take the pain. Like, I'm not going to allow this overwhelming pain that I'm feeling to completely define me. And this is an egoic dance. Like, this is like one of the main ego's programs is I am how I feel myself. Like, I am how I feel myself to be. How do you say that? I am whatever I'm feeling. I feel mad, I am mad. I feel bad, I am bad. I feel unworthy, I am unworthy. Whereas, to be awake, we have to pop those bubbles and say, like, is that what I am? And in Zen, the definition is really different. You are what's here all the time. Now, unfortunately, the spiritual dimension of our being is incredibly quiet. And this is why the ego misses this all the time. Like, everyone is peace all the time. Everyone is love all the time. But love and peace are so quiet. We miss this fact. And instead we hear the emotion which is on the surface. I am rage. I am heartache. I am suffering. I am addiction. I'm a failure. A failure is like, no one's a failure. Everyone's light. Everyone's light. But the ego identifies with the loudest voice in the room, and the loudest voice is often an emotion that's in this great suffering. So anyways, Chrissy, that was a beautiful question. I hope that was helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Okay. Let's see here if I can press all the right buttons here. Let's see. Okay, let's hear from Nanette.
Hey.
Hey, Nanette, good to see you.
Good to see you. Good to see everyone. It's been a minute since I've been on.
Yeah.
All the usual suspects are present, so that's good. I just wanted to ask you about kind of the process of integrating no self. And I've been experiencing very strongly for the last couple of months a new kind of dimension of awakening, which is like me before. And so there's this sense of unimaginable wholeness, and then there's like these identities that come through. And so it's been kind of like a mind fuck going from this just like, yeah, words fall short, but I don't, just empty freedom. And it's like existing prior to experience and just resting there. And then like these really gnarly kind of identities coming through, and it's kind of just, yeah, I'm just kind of like, what is the process here? Like, is it to just sit and be with those identities and kind of patiently just like witness as they kind of burn through, or like, yeah, what's like the map for this territory, because it feels like new territory.
Yes, so a couple of things. No self has this flavor which is radically unhuman, but it also, and with that, it's just self-liberating, and there's really nothing to do. But no self also has this quality which is radically human, and it's the freedom to be human, the freedom to fail, the freedom to allow evolution to fully happen, without intervening, without processing it, without having to fix it, without controlling it. And often, this will sound really unspiritual, but it could be this quality of like not giving, like we'll just be crass here, not giving a fuck about where you're at, what you should be doing, and just like you just allow the human to be human, and you fully allow it. And there's this funny paradoxical dance. When you fully allow the human to be human, there's great freedom. There's great danger. We'll talk about that in a moment. But there's this great freedom in just letting your human self just be human. You let the evolutionary dance of your soul do what it needs to do without thinking about it. And so the thing that happened with me when this first woke up is it was almost like I got to be a kid again. And the kid just got to play without a superego and a critic telling him that he's wrong, he's bad, he needs to do it different, he needs to be spiritual, he needs to follow the eightfold path or something. It's like the kid could just be a kid. And he could be an idiot, he could be a screw up, he could be a failure. And the beauty in it was through allowing the human to fully be a human. And I want to acknowledge here, like there wasn't like a witnessing of this. Like the divinity and the human just fell and imploded into one. Now this could very easily be taken to be fallen back into the ego, which, there's a little bit of nuance here. So it's not that. But from the outside, it could seem like that. But it's through giving oneself full permission to be human without the two inside, two being the superego, the critic, the controlling one. And from that place, what you find is things just start to burn out very quickly. Wants, needs, desires, like just ways of being just tend to burn themselves out very quickly, but also in a very innocent way. There's aspects of one's humanity that continue to flow and just play themselves out and may go on for decades. And you see, there's nothing wrong with being human. Whereas most spiritual traditions teach, you're bad, you're wrong. For being human, because you're human, you shouldn't be human. You're supposed to be a Zen robot that never has a thought, feeling, or emotion. And to me, that there's a great sense of violence there in that type of spirituality where it's just like you're wrong for existing. Whereas in this childlike way, and again, like I don't want anyone to get the wrong impression here, it's like the human is fully allowed to be a human, fully allowed to dance, to play, to engage in relationship, to get in trouble, to fail. But there's just this sense of having this experience without any self-consciousness, which again can be radically dangerous. And this is where a lot of people actually get in trouble. It's where a lot of great teachers and masters, if they don't have just some level of ethics or boundaries, or this is where like, oh, it's all good, but it's not good. And my sense is like, if the innocence that you are is allowed to live through and direct your humanity, then there can be just this real playful innocence that can enjoy life and experience life. And to me, it's almost like what you'd imagine, like God really wanting to do. Like if God was just alone in the universe as just this great oneness that was, undifferentiated, and God got a little bored. It's like, wouldn't it be cool to incarnate and have a life and have an experience? And if God did that, like without a superego, without self-consciousness, if God could just play and not be wrong for playing, and evolution would just run its course, and there was a natural sense of innate goodness, it all kinds of just works itself out. It all kind of just works itself out. And there's this great freedom in it. This great freedom. But one of the hallmarks of it, this is something that I realized, is like this division between the spiritual and the worldly life implode. So there's no longer a division of, oh, am I being spiritual or not? It's just like everything is divine. Everything is okay. Everything is life. And there's no two worlds anymore. And there's just this sense of it's okay to fully be human and to fully play. And my God, where people take that is always they get in trouble with the stupid things. They get in trouble with sex, they get in trouble with money, they get in trouble with power. It's like, I just want us to imagine that we can play, and it can be much more innocent, where we're not getting we're not really getting in that type of trouble. Like the trouble we're getting in is just, it's more evolutionary. It's fun. It's more innocent. More like a kid playing in the mud. A kid playing in the mud. And again, like I always bite my tongue about this type of thing, because people think, oh, then there's freedom to, just do whatever I want, sleep with whoever. And it's like, no, that's not it. That's not it. That's your desire leading you. Whereas this quality is more innocence mixed with evolution leading you, without a superego judging you. And it just feels wholesome, and it feels good, and it feels childlike. And there's just a sense of like, oh yeah, like this is Maya, this is play. This is play. And what you see is there's no real danger in it. There's actually great joy in it. Great joy in it. But again, almost everyone, like 90% of the people take this teaching and they're like, boom, that means I get to screw around with whoever, and I get to act out in this way and that way. And they don't think it, but their ego thinks it. And then it's like, okay, yeah, you're obviously not then in the state that we're speaking about here.
I guess I'm wondering, as you share this, like what in me is keeping this kind of, and maybe it's just this is the process of integrating, but as you said, like the no self feels so not human. I mean, it's deeply personal and alive, but it's like not human. And then there's this like bridging. They still feel like two separate worlds to some degree. And I'm starting to see the luminosity in the dance kind of in just the mundane, what was mundane, but there's still some sort of like internalized division.
Well, so normally with no self, like one of the hallmarks of it is there's zero division. Like zero.
It's like I'll go into like the absolute where there's like no, and I mean I can feel it right here too, but and then like the human emotion comes up, and then I think there's still a part of me that's like, oh, that's not it or something.
No. So I'd say it like completely different. That with no, so here's where people get confused. People often think of no self as the absolute. So I want everyone to imagine that the absolute is your human life. So there's no divine back here. Like there's no back and there's no forward. No back, no forward. So if there's a back, that's normally transcendent, that's a heaven realm, that's an immense realm of the absolute. And if there's the absolute, then there's the relative. But I want us to imagine the absolute and relative implode into one. So the absolute cannot be anywhere but everywhere. And if the absolute is everywhere, there's no two worlds. There's no back and forward. And so I want to imagine this, and this is what really screws with you. This really screwed with me. Every thought about awakening, like the word awakening, becomes completely and utterly irrelevant. It's like there's nothing that could be awake or non-awake. That there is only awakeness everywhere in everything. But to even say, oh, I woke up out of this into that, when no self comes online fully, there's almost this sense of like what wakes up into what? There's no awake. There is only this one realm. And boy, does that screw with everything about spirituality. It's like everything I teach is about, we need to wake up into this, and there's ego and this and this and that and that. But like in my experience, like none of that even exists anymore. And I'm not saying there's no ego here, anything like that. I don't want people to misunderstand what I'm saying, but there's no two worlds. And to be able to even experience two worlds, becomes mostly impossible. Now, I will say this, that when I teach, and often when lights are coming in, then the world starts splitting and things start opening up, and then it becomes this other thing, but that's normally for the benefit of others, not for me. In my experience, there's no longer like there's no longer two of anything. There's no two in me, and then no two in other. And so then it becomes quite bizarre. Like when you're talking to your children, you're talking to your mom, you're talking to the sky, you're talking to the dog. It's all you. But not to you. It's only one. But again, this comes, and again, like this teaching isn't valuable for anyone really. Because it's the end of division. At the end of division, then there's nothing to talk about. You just see the fullness everywhere as everything. Even as samsara, even as hell, even as, there's no, in a sense, there's no other. But the way to get there, like if we back up a little bit, to me, the quickest way to get there, like if we want to map, is through loving hell. Because through loving hell, it's the imploding of the ego. Like the ego doesn't know how to exist once we fully have loved hell. But even if there's this spiritual tendency or bias toward the absolute and away from the human, it's like, well, that's a division, and that's a bias, and that's a judgment. And there's this thing that's wrong and this thing that's good, and I got to get to this thing over here, and this other thing, isn't good, and it's unholy. And it's like the real thing that screws with people with when no self comes online is, this is piss a lot of people off, but it's the death of God and it's the death of the spiritual. It's like there's nothing as spiritual anymore. Nothing. They're going to say it differently. Everything is God, and there is no God. Because God is everything that is. totally undifferentiated and undivided. And like, this could all sound philosophical, but the thing that hurt greatly within my own self was when this happened, it was like, oh, where did God go? Where did the other go? Where did anything other go? Where did the inner child go? Where did it? And it's like just this crushing oneness, but that's not even a oneness, because there's not even another thing that oneness can be unified with. And so, but again, if we just make it real practical, and this is like, again, I can't teach this because this is, it's just something that arises. This is though why I place so much emphasis on loving hell. Because through loving the things that we normally revolt against or dislike or divorce ourselves from, is through loving whatever it is that we dislike, that we are against, that we judge, that we control. It's through the avenue of loving the things that terrify us and the things that we reject, that this deeper unification comes online. And it's only through this. And so integration is always a matter of love and a matter of surrender. And so if there's any question here, it's just like, can I love whatever's here? And can I explore what does non-division really mean? A lot of people think non-division means, well, I get to the absolute and I've erased my human self. No. Human self will always be here. Like, that's an act of fucked up violence in the name of spirituality, to say I have to erase all of my human self. And if I have to erase all my human self, that means every motherfucker on planet Earth is bad and wrong. They are all original sin. They are all fucking wrong because they're human. And my God, if that is the truth, what the hell kind of spirituality is this? If every person is wrong, if evolution is wrong, if all desire is wrong, if it's like, if it makes everything wrong, like, this is just the truth of like the monastic tradition, is everything is wrong. And look, it's not just Catholicism, it's Zen, it's Buddhism,
too.
it's your humanity, the ego is this vile, dirty thing. That cannot be the truth. That cannot be the truth. It's like, why would God create a world that is wrong? It's like, how can life be wrong? It like brings tears to my eyes. Like, how can life be wrong? How can humans be wrong? How can my child be wrong if she gets angry? If she like freaks out? If she steals a cookie? Like, is she wrong? Like, is she wrong? Is she bad? Like, is this nervous system wrong? If it has a thought like, oh my God, I'm in such pain, I want to be out of pain. If that is wrong, it's like, what the hell kind of spirituality is this? Like, this cannot be the truth. The truth must be that all is God. The worst aspects of my humanity, the best, my divinity, like, all of it has to be God. And again, this teaching is so dangerous because most people be like, oh, that gives me a free permission to do and just do whatever it is. And it's like, that's not it. That's not it. That's just giving the ego permission to be whatever it wants and do whatever it wants. It's this other thing where you see that life is life. Life is life, and there's nothing wrong with life. Life is God. God is everything. And when we experience this directly, we don't misbehave in the way the ego that wants to misbehave misbehaves. I hope that last part kind of made sense. There's just this sense of the human plays and plays out its life in a way of full permission, full innocence. And there's this freedom in finally being human without a judge here judging you. And out of the purity and the innocence, there's something else that guides one through it all. Through it all. And that thing that guides is not different from the thing that fails. And that thing is life. And so I want you to imagine, like, no self, like, put it different. It's like waking up and realizing you are nature. Not that there is God and nature is bad, nature is sinful, nature is originally bad, and it has to transform into God. If you just allow nature to be itself, you see, nature evolves naturally without any input from a superego. It just evolves, and it's innately good, it's innately divine, it's innately holy. And so anyways, I hope there was there something there for you?
I just appreciate you a lot. That was church. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's I get what you're talking about, and that's there too. And I think there's just the conditioning of, I'm at a Buddhist monastery right now, and it's like, just tonight we were doing this compassion practice, and it was talking about like how we pray that all humans are finally freed from this hell realm of planet Earth and like born into the pure land and blah blah blah. It's like it's everywhere, and it's so insidious, and it just feels like it's my path to confront those conditions and keep healing.
Well, and
back
the
into life.
problem with them is they're so rampant in spirituality.
Yeah.
It's like at some point, I just remember this, just at some point, I just woke up and realized, my God, I am doing so much violence to the human character, Craig, in the name of spirituality. I was like, this cannot be the way of just eternally making Craig bad and wrong. And I mean, I had a PhD in that. It's just like, he's bad, he's wrong in every degree. It's just was this
So
spiritual
after
thinking.
you, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm just curious, like, what was the pivot? Like, I know David took you to so many heaven realms and blah, blah, blah. Like, was there ever a point where you just sat down and gave that up and just decided to plant yourself here on earth as it is?
So like I was saying before, I think a big part of it came through just the question of, well, what would it be to be non-divided? And so in order to be non-divided, there can't be things I like and things I don't like. And so basically it came down to this inquiry of, how can I be comfortable in hell? How can I be comfortable with all the aspects of myself that I reject? And through that arose this great love. It's just like this great primordial love, which gave permission for the human to be human. For the human to be human. And in that, again, like, it could have been seen as an enormous step backwards, but there was this time on the path, this way, like post-awakening, where at some point, all of a sudden, it was like I got to be a 14-year-old boy again. And I got to be that. But like for most of us, when we're 14, we have so much self-judgment, criticism. We're into like we think we are our hairdo, we think we are our face, we think we're our clothes, you know, it's like we think we are that identity. But it's like I woke up as this 14-year-old kid with none of that judgment of one's, like it was like it was impossible. And so this is again like where I come to, it's like it's almost impossible for me to judge myself. Like almost impossible. That's one of the hallmarks of no self. It's like there's zero self-criticism. And there's zero desire for things to be different. Even if there is a desire to be different. You know, like if you're in a great deal of pain, it's just, again, it screws with the egoic nature, because so much is the egoic nature, and then there's this self-consciousness. So it's really the falling away of self-consciousness. But for the falling away of self-consciousness to happen, one has to be completely and utterly safe and empowered in hell. Because if you can be in hell and be relaxed, like there's not going to be any self-consciousness there. But if you're in hell and you're not relaxed, there's going to be plenty of self-consciousness. There's going to be complaining. I don't like this. I don't like that. How do I change? How do I get out of here? How does it, you know, it's like all this voice of how life should be different, how you should be different, how this shouldn't be as it is. But when you realize yourself as life, like nature isn't judging nature. Nature is just being the fullness of nature and all its tragedy, beauty, hell, horror, violence, and radiance. And again, like this is more, it's like something that comes to one rather than, oh, like I did something to make this happen. Again, like I didn't do anything to make this happen. I was just playing around with it, you know, like what does it mean to be free all the time in every aspect of my being, in every aspect of being human? What does it mean to be free? And most people think of freedom as a feeling, or they connect it to a state of consciousness like the absolute, like some heaven world or something like that. It's like, well, what if the absolute didn't exist? You know, or what if God just erased herself from life? It's like, my God, like what the hell, what kind of spiritual thing is that? And again, like these are things that, and I didn't have that thought. It's just like one day God came in and erased herself from life. It's like, huh, like where did God go? And if, you know, and then if you're around anyone great, you'll see, oh, they do the, yes, God is real. Yes, God exists. And there's also a realm where God doesn't exist. And yes, the human exists. And then there's a realm where human doesn't exist. And there's a realm where all of them exist and don't exist together. It's just like, what does this even mean? It doesn't even make any sense until you start living that. And when you're living it, it's like, oh God, but you can't even keep up with it. And then at some point, there's just this melting into it where it's just, you are it, and there's no holding on, there's no comparing, there's no, like, I want to be in bliss versus, you know, I want to be whatever in this other thing. And so, again, if everyone could just stick with the fundamental teaching that I offer is, what if we loved everything we rejected? That's a good place to start. And if we're rejecting something or thinking something is wrong, that's probably not being loving. And that's probably not the ultimate truth. And that there's a part of me I want and a part of me I don't want. That can't be the truth. when you love everything, integration naturally happens, and we just seem to progress in a way that makes sense. And so I hope that's helpful, by the way.
Yeah, this has been a really precious teaching. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. I will say just one last thing to everyone. Most people, like if we could choose, like the most exquisite state that people could choose would be the transcendent, because it's just like, I don't have to be human. I can float in space. Nothing is real. I can just kind of just float and screw off, and I feel so euphoric, and it's wonderful. I'll say this, that the experience of no self, no one could really ever want it. Like it's such a bizarre way of being. Like most people, if they could go back just a couple stages, they'd be like, yeah, just take me back to transcendent, where it's just like I just float in euphoria. Like when I was just floating in euphoria, it's like, oh yeah, it's like just being on the best drugs ever. And just floating in peace and bliss and freedom, and but in transcendent, there's two. There's me and the absolute, and then there's all the world and samsara, and they're all confused, and I'm on the greatest trip ever. And it's almost everyone, if they're really honest, like, oh yeah, like that's a place people would want to park. But God just tends to just move us along, into these deeper, and I'll say realer stages of being. And I want to be clear. It's like when you're in the transcendent, it's like there's really not much suffering at all. But when you're in no self, I mean, you can be like this boy, nailed to the cross, suffering like hell, and it's all okay. But you're bleeding. You're bleeding, and you're really dying, but you're really not. And you are the nail, and you are the blood, and you are the human, and you are the fuckers who are, throwing you up there like you're all of it. And it's like, huh, the hell kind of situation is this, And but it's all of it. It's all of it. So anyways, I am way over time. I missed everyone's questions, and gosh, dang it, I got carried away. All right, everyone who emailed me, you're just gonna have to come back next week. I'm just gonna say this. There's a couple of ones that are real easy here. I just had to do this one. Someone asked me a question about diet and food and all this, and kundalini impact our energies. Listen, so on the scale of things to worry about, diet, I want you just to imagine diet is irrelevant. Irrelevant. Diet is just one of these things that we control, and it's like one of these little spiritual things that's like, if we go back to the first teaching for tonight, if you are in alignment with truth, if you're honoring your human body, you're going to eat what's good for you. And what's good for you is going to be what's good for our planet. It's going to be what's good for everyone and everything. And there's no morality in it. There's no judgment in it. But you're probably going to eat a good whole foods diet that's just naturally good. That's an easy question for me to get to. People get into all kinds of thoughts. This is where we get into all these spiritual rules. I'm just going to go. So if you guys want to bail, you can. I'm going to just get to these questions just because I love the people who wrote them. So I want to. Is it common to experience problems with? Is this another question about diet? Okay. Is it common to experience problems with food and eating while in the process of kundalini integration? Yes. It very rarely feels good for me to eat anything at all because it feels like there's so much energy in my belly already. Could you maybe say something about that? Yeah, so again, look, when your body starts waking up, your body may do strange things. Like I have a belly. I'm as skinny as I've ever been. I have a belly that sticks out. So I don't have a skinny girl supermodel belly, which is emaciated. Like what I have is I have a yoga belly, which my belly, it sticks out like I'm fat. It's just full of energy. It's full light. It sticks out. Even though I am so skinny right now because my body got sick and I haven't got my weight back. Listen, just eat a little bit of food. I'm surviving right now on just like teeny amounts of food. And so there's times when this transformation, it just does strange things to your body and you eat a little bit of food. There's times when people freak out and they just want to be eating flesh, like they just want to eat pure meat all the time, and that helps them somehow. There's times when you just want to be a vegetarian and follow your truth, and you just have to play with your body. And all of this will make you a master through you listening to your unique temple and what your body needs. Don't listen to what you read in a book. Don't listen to what that guy Craig said. Don't listen to this or that. You listen to your body and let the nature of your body tell you what the truth is. My second question would be, it's become a daily practice for me to take an ice bath in the river, doing dynamic meditation afterwards. Would you recommend this on the journey of kundalini awakening? Look, Lucas, if your body wants to do an ice bath, do it. I do cold showers and my body wants it. My body needs it. And that's what I do. I listen to it. But if my body wants a hot shower, I listen to it. There's a difference between listening to your body and listening to your desire nature. And there's a difference between you, I'm just going to say this, a lot of young males, not always, but let's just say a lot of young males copy what other real strong males with intense willpower do. A lot of young males copy the Wim Hof game, and that's what they do. And listen, I love Wim. I love his work. But I only want people taking an ice bath if that is their truth. An ice bath will not make you enlightened. Like that's not the way to freedom. It will give you a strong will. It may have great health benefits. Dynamic meditation is going to send your energy through the roof, my friend. So if you're excited about energy and you want to roll the dice with that, go for it. If it's too much, just back it off. Okay. Craig, what do you think about, is a new one from Ananda. Craig, what do you think about the meditation exercise, sitting in the power? It's about visualizing and feeling the life energy of the soul expanding from the chest. Yes. Yes, that's what I'm going to say. Sit in your power, live your truth, live the love that you are. Be the truth, be the light. Visualize it, be it, embody it, experience it. Fall in love with what you are. Fall in love with what you are. Okay, so good to be with you all. I hope everyone was here in the beginning, heard the invitation for retreat, December 26th to the 28th, right after Christmas. Look, it's an online retreat. I don't need a bunch of questions about, just show up as much as you can. If you come the whole thing, come. If you only come one day, but just try to come to the whole thing. Okay. If you need a scholarship, if you're totally broke, let me know and we'll take care of you. So much love to all of you. So good to be with you. Good night, everyone.